It feels like 2008 all over again. The best way to protect your savings is with gold and silver. As the national debt soars past $34 trillion and the banking system wobbles, your financial well-being could be at risk. Precious metals like gold and silver hedge against inflation and dollar devaluation. They're perfect for diversifying your portfolio. With Goldco, it's easy. Get first-class service, step-by-step guidance, and a free wealth protection kit. In just 3 simple steps, you can roll over your 401k or IRA into precious metals, tax and penalty free. Todd Callender and I chose Goldco because they stand out with over 6,000 5-star ratings, an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, and a highest buyback price guarantee. Don't wait. Secure your financial future. Visit survival.gold or click the link below to get your free 2024 Wealth Protection Kit now. Government agencies have been weaponized against us. The Secret Service reacts too late. The FBI manufactures cases. The ATF targets our firearms, and the FDA screws us to drive big pharma profits. We must support Trump, who literally took a bullet for us, and back independent media like Survival Dispatch News. Now they're aiming to make Black Forest NMN a regulated anti-aging product to drive more profits for big pharma. NMN is the only over-the-counter supplement I've taken that's noticeably increased my energy levels, allowing me to work extreme hours. I've taken almost every OTC supplement over the past 42 years that I've been training, many of them as a world champion powerlifter. Get your NMN before it's too late. Buy 2, get 1 free. Click the link below. Stay alert, stay strong, and stay safe. And we're back. I'm joined today by our in-house CIA operative, Jeff MD, aka 007. And it looks like we got Nancy Piglosi with us here as well tonight. Imagine that.
That's why and Grandma.
Yeah. So as you can tell, Nancy's voice has dropped significantly probably since the last time you heard her talk. And that's actually, believe it or not, that's our undercover intel guy, S2.
Does that mean her balls dropped too?
I thought she was just going through a gender transition. It was, doing a woman.
Boy, could we go down a rabbit hole with that one?
Well, her and Big Mike are good buddies, I gather.
Boy, howdy. So we may have James from Pilgrim Ammo joining us. He's trying to join from his phone, and it's a bit of a trick to get that to work with StreamYard. And Mike Sterling couldn't be with us today, so I will do the conflicted question, and Jeff and S2 will make sure I don't forget to address it at the end of the episode like I normally do. So for those of you who aren't familiar, there's card games called Conflicted the Game, conflictedthegame.com, and they've got some really interesting questions set in post-apocalyptic scenarios, so keeping that in mind. Put the following resources in order of importance to you in a post-apocalyptic setting: food, water, shelter, weapons. If you could only pick 3 to bug out with, what would they be and why? So, not a terribly hard question today, at least from my perspective, but there's no morals involved in this one for a change. Usually we have some moral element to it. Update-wise, the next 4 nights, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, live episodes of Survival Dispatch News at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And if you haven't been over to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Survival Dispatch, you can get free memberships, or you can pay $9.99 a month. About 50% of the content is for free members. All of the content, of course, for paid members. For that $9.99 a month, you get behind the scenes content. You get to interact with those of us who are on various panels at Survival Dispatch. You get our 228-page Essentials Guide for free. It's normally $10. You get 50% off all of our Survival Dispatch Insider e-magazines. We started a Signal chat group earlier this week. There's been a tremendous amount of interest in that. If you are a paying Survival Dispatch Insider member, download and install Signal on your phone. Make sure it's completely operational, and then send an email with your phone number to support@survivaldispatch.com. We'll get you on the invite. The number that you send has to be the number that you've registered to Signal. And if you haven't registered with Signal, there's no way to add you. When I punch your number, it'll come back saying user not found. So please make sure that when you go through the process, you install and configure Signal, you make sure that it's working. Then you send an email to support@survivaldispatch.com with your phone number, and I will get you added. So with that out of the way, we have got a shit ton of topics to cover today. There's definitely no shortage of newsworthy things. So before we dive into that, I'm going to pull up a flow chart that we put together with regards to important dates and what things look like going forward in this election cycle. I'm going to read through it, then I'll have Jeff and S2 comment on it, but it sets the stage for quite a bit of the news that we're going to cover today. So here's our flow chart. Of course, we have Election Day on November the 5th. Trump will be sentenced by Judge Merchan in the hush money trial in New York, November 26th. Congress is supposed to certify the election on January the 6th. And of course, the president would be sworn in on January the 20th. So let's talk Election Day through to sentencing. It's looking like Trump is going to win in a landslide if there are no major events. I mean, the election is really looking too big to rig. Now, we're not going to take our foot off the gas. We've all got to make sure that we get out there November the 5th and vote, or vote early, to absolutely cement this election is too big to rig. However, it's our prediction that there will be continued assassination attempts against Donald Trump before and after the election, and that it will probably result in civil war if he's killed. There's some unconfirmed intel regarding Madison Square Gardens and Trump's appearance there before the election, saying that there will be an attempt on his life. As far as the bad guys are concerned, they would much rather take Donald Trump out before the election as opposed to after the election. I personally don't think that he should be going to Madison Square Gardens, but who am I to say otherwise? If we get past Election Day, I think we're going to see pretty significant delays in any types of announcements to allow the Democrats to undertake their massive cheating. Or there's another theory out there that they may blatantly cheat and make it look like Donald Trump's side cheated, then blame him for the cheating, and then disqualify him for said cheating. And that one doesn't strike me as impossible at all. Regardless of who is declared the winner, we're going to see lawsuits on both sides of it, kind of like the dangling chads that we had here in Florida in 2000. And there's going to be massive civil unrest regardless of who's declared the winner. If Trump's declared the winner, you're going to see Antifa and other groups like that lose their shit. And if they steal this election from Trump again, you'll probably see a civil war of some element. We're not promoting that idea, but we spoke to enough people who've assured us that they're not going to take it lying down like they did in 2020. So that also leads to the fact that we could end up having martial law declared. The election could be suspended. So in other words, if they manage to assassinate Trump at Madison Square Gardens and there's all kinds of civil unrest, civil war, they suspend the election, declare martial law. Could happen if we get drug into World War III. For those of you who've been paying attention, you probably know that North Korea has destroyed all kinds of infrastructure like bridges and whatnot on their border with South Korea. They've sent somewhere between 12 and 15,000 troops to fight in Ukraine on behalf of the Russians. Realistically, we're only maybe one minor, misstep by somebody and be thrown into World War III. And the other option is November 5th could be disrupted by terrorist attacks. We've already captured one, either Al-Qaeda or ISIS, I can't remember which group he was aligned with, but a guy from Afghanistan who had plans to commit a terrorist act on November 5th. And if we saw that widespread simultaneously across the country, that could shut the election down as well. So let's say we get past the election, Donald Trump is the winner, and he goes for sentencing in front of Judge Merchan November 26th. And that whole thing is an absolute sham. The judge is completely out of line. And I'll just briefly say that when you are charged with something, you have to have a unanimous jury decision. And you have to have a unanimous jury decision on all counts. So what the judge did in this case, the hush money crowd, was he said, listen, there's 16 counts here. And if 4 of you choose to convict on one, and 4 of you choose to convict on another, and 4 of you choose to convict on a third, I'll consider that anonymous, and we'll go ahead and convict them. And that is not legal in our system. It would get overturned on appeal if we ever get to that. However, if they don't succeed in taking them out in the first part of this flow chart, we get to November 26th. It's highly likely that Merchan puts Trump in prison, most likely Rikers. There's quite a few people who've said Rikers has been prepared to lock Donald Trump up. And if they do lock him up, then they're going to try and Epstein him while he's incarcerated. And again, we're back to no matter how you square this, if they manage to assassinate Donald Trump, it's probably going to result in a civil war. And if they don't Epstein him while he's in jail, they're absolutely going to try and disqualify him vis-a-vis the 14th Amendment. And then it's questionable whether or not J.D. Vance or Kamala would be declared the winner. I think once again, it leads towards civil war. Again, we are not promoting that idea. We're just reporting on the chatter, for lack of a better term, that we're hearing. And if we get to that point, then you're likely to see our military deployed against Americans on American soil per the recently very quietly updated DoD Directive 5240.01, which goes way beyond the Insurrection Act and basically states if any law enforcement agency from a city PD all the way through to the feds asks for mutual aid from the Department of Defense, that troops can be deployed to use lethal force against Americans on American soil. Hard to imagine how that would turn out. So let's say we get past all of that. We get to January the 6th. If Trump wins and the win is certified on January 6th, you're going to see massive civil unrest again from the left. So the Antifa types. If Congress refuses to certify the election results, declaring Trump the winner, then Kamala will be installed and you're back to civil war again. And even the Democrats are predicting that. Jamie Raskin has, predicted that he's a total piece of shit. And in that case, as he mentioned in that interview, Jamie Raskin, the military would be deployed again per the updated directive 5240.01. There's some pretty strong indications that there are multiple retired flag officers that will enter the Pentagon and take control of our military and will then support a Trump win, and hopefully we would see order restored. And if we get through all of this with none of this stuff happening, which I personally don't see happening, Trump would be sworn in as president again on January the 20th. Jeff, I'm going to go to you first, then S2. I'm going to leave this flow chart up, but I would like to hear what both of you have to say with regards to all of these potential things.
Yeah, on the the first group, the thing where they're going to make it look like Trump stole the election, they're going to have a real hard time pulling that one off because all the early voting is swinging Republicans' way. So, this would have been like if Biden had been ahead all night on election night. It's kind of hard to say he stole the election. Well, he wasn't. Trump was ahead all night. Well, Trump's well ahead, or Republicans in general are well ahead right now. So for them to say Trump stole the election, it's like, okay, so they went out and faked millions upon millions of votes, had them distributed across the country and hand delivered to the polling places by the people who faked them? Yeah, I don't think so.
Well, on that point, we know how easy it is to manipulate voting machines.
True. This is true.
It's entirely possible that they use the election machines in such a blatant manner that it's like, oh, these were Trump people that stole this election. Sorry.
Well, but even if they do that, if Trump, Trump's very strong going in anyway. If anything, people would go, well, maybe he just did get all those votes. I think that's a less likely scenario because, if it was just neck and neck and they thought Republicans were going to win it on election day, that's one thing. But Dade County, Florida, which is one of the bluest of blue counties in Florida, has already flipped Republican. The early voting is the Republicans have are winning Dade County for the first time in God knows how long, probably since Eisenhower. What I see them happening, I think they're going to go back. They're going to have to go back to the lawfare. I think they're going to file lawsuits. They're going to say because they scrubbed voter rolls that this election or that election was unfair, unconstitutional, and they're going to try and find some friendly judge somewhere to declare various elections null and void and try and get them to revote. We saw that in Florida in 2000 when they lost. They tried to basically say, okay, we want a mulligan, we want a do-over. And I think that's going to be a hard sell as well, because that's going to end up at the Supreme Court in short order. They'll expedite that, and I don't think that's going to fly. Now, if he is sentenced to jail, I don't see him, and they want to lock him up. I don't see him in very long, because I think you're going to find a sane judge up the line who's going to suspend it pending appeal, because it's as soon as they sentence him, it's automatically going to be appealed. And it was such a bad trial in the first place. There's going to be a lot of people, I think, on the left even, that are going to be running for cover saying, I don't want my name attached to this disaster. And you're already seeing it now with like the Washington Post not endorsing Harris. I think they're starting to distance themselves. And the New York case was such a shit show. It was, they broke every judicial precedence, every rule, several laws in the prosecution of that case. People who think about their own futures, judges and lawyers, are going to go, I don't want to be associated with this. And so I think that it's going to get suspended. It's going to get appealed. It's going to get shot down immediately on appeal, because the whole case was crap from the beginning. But if he's in jail for 24 hours, what happens in 24 hours? But as the president-elect, he's still entitled to Secret Service protection. So even if they put him in Rikers, Secret Service is going to have to be in there with him. Otherwise, Secret Service won't let him arrest him, because they're going to say, no, we have a mission. He's the president-elect. We have to protect him. And if you think you can put him in Gen Pop at Rikers, no, that ain't going to happen. Because I think there are still some good people inside the Secret Service who are going to say, we have a job to do, and some kangaroo court in New York is not going to keep us from doing our job. Well, now they may try and disqualify him, per the 14th Amendment. That's not going to fly. Supreme Court's already shot that down when they were using that to pull him off of state ballots. So if anything, they'll file a motion, but nothing's going to happen. I think what you're going to see, I think their best bet, if they can't get him in jail for any length of time, even if they do, they just want to embarrass him, but it'll be too late. I think it's going to be Congress. You're going to see them trying to not certify the election. But if he wins an electoral landslide, which it looks like he's going to, you would have to have so many people on board to say, how can you say, okay, he had 300 and some odd electoral votes. How are you trying to say he's not? The people have spoken. How can you say that they haven't?
So let me pull something up quickly here to play devil's advocate before we move on to S2. That is the appellate division. Those are the 5 judges, the appellate division in New York. These are the judges who would hear any appeal over Judge Merchan's orders. And every last one of them,
they will sustain it. It's the next one that's going to go.
Yeah, every last one of these, by golly, these DEI hires, sorry if that sounds bad, is on record as being very anti-Trump.
Yeah. Which is why their decision will immediately get overruled by a higher court.
You would hope so. It depends on how far the Democrats, of course, want to push this. S2, I'd like to hear your thoughts on all of these potential things shown in the flowchart.
Yeah, I agree with most of what Jeff said there. Actually, I agree with everything he said there. For starters, we talk about the military being deployed. So in order for that to occur, and Jeff, keep me honest with this, I do believe that the Insurrection Act has to be signed in order for that to take place. Now, I know what the directive says, but what I think here is I think you had a bunch of DEI hires that rewrote that directive in their own interpretation of the commander's intent. I don't think that that is exactly, I don't think it was specific enough in that order or that directive to state exactly what they were trying to accomplish there. Um, and that's my opinion and an opinion of a few other people's circles I travel in. Um, the only thing that I would add about civil unrest and things of that nature, I think what we're going to see is we've already seen a major pullback happening with amongst several of these subversive groups. And I honestly think what's happening right now is pretty similar to what happened in the Chinese Cultural Revolution and what happened over in Vietnam and other places, where I think the old guard is being replaced by the new guard, which is a more vicious guard. And they just don't have the momentum that they have continued on. They have to have an event that would make them come to action, and they haven't been able to foment those events. They've been foiled every time. So I think what they're doing right now is they're pulling back and regrouping and reorganizing their leadership at the moment. I do think at some point there is going to be some unrest, but I don't think we're going to see it on as large a scale as what we saw in 2020. Um, Now, after Trump gets inaugurated, if we go through all of this and what Jeff and everything that Jeff said, I think that there will be some pockets of resistance that will pop up here and there. But by and large, I don't think it's going to be as large as we think it is. That's really about all I have to add to that.
Yeah, I think you'll probably see Portland burn itself to the ground again. Who cares? And
Well,
sorry
you got
for
to
Portland, but to be honest, if Portland went away tomorrow, it would go. There was a Portland. 'Cause nobody gets rat's ass, and it's going to be really hard for them to foment all this. Oh, the country's at stake. Blah blah blah. Democracy is at risk if Trump wins the electoral vote in a landslide and then wins the popular vote as well. Because that was one of their big talking points in 2016. It's like, well, yeah, he may have won the electoral vote, but he lost the popular vote. Hillary should be president. We were screwed by the electoral college. Okay, get over it. That's our system.
Well, that's why they want to get rid of it.
Well, yeah, now they want to get rid of it. But yeah, you'll never get rid of it simply because that requires constitutional amendment. And all the small states go, whoa, wait a minute. This is to our advantage. We're not giving this away. And they'd be stupid to do it. If they really wanted the electoral college to be more reflective of the nation as a whole, they would do it. They would appoint delegates by district. And that way, California wouldn't be 67 electoral votes for the Democrats. It might be 40 for the Democrats and 27 for the Republicans, because there are Republicans in California. And so what you would look at is like, okay, we're in control of the House of Representatives right now. That means we won more districts than the Democrats did. So if you apportioned electoral votes by district and then let the overall vote of the state determine the other two, for each state, Republicans would win by even more.
Yeah, I still think that the probability of something happening between now and January 6th is very significant. Terrorist attacks, World War III, or Donald Trump assassinated. And I think under all of those circumstances, the Democrats will do everything they can to take advantage of it, and that we won't be looking at small pockets of civil unrest in any of those cases. So it goes beyond just all the legal maneuvering in courts and appeals and stuff. We've got some big,
they'll try
things to play.
They are not going to go quietly into the good night. The question is can it work? And legally, no, probably not. But they can cause so much disruption. And, Biden is doing a fine job of tanking the economy so that Trump really inherits a pile of shit when he takes office. Yeah, he can open the borders and just let in 2 million more people between now and January 20th.
Well, they're basically doing that, but
that's an interesting point that you make. Todd Benz put out a piece here not too long ago where that's exactly what they're doing. They're bringing people up, but they're also housing them. They're basically herding them off into these small Mexican towns right now, and they're basically putting them in a holding pattern. And that was a deal that Biden made with Obrador down in Mexico. Okay, I'm going to pay you $300 million, and you're going to shuffle all of these guys over into these small Mexican town strongholds over here, and you're going to hold them here. If Kamala loses, then you can turn them loose. If Trump wins, you can turn them loose, and they'll just come rushing the border. But they're bringing them in, I think, at 200,000 a clip right now, and all of these towns are starting to get overloaded. So,
Yeah.
And it's significant, but based on all of the intel related to terrorists, it's very highly likely that we're going to see some sort of terrorist attack. And if a terrorist attack happens, the Democrats will milk it for everything they possibly can, whether it's suspending elections, martial law, whatever the case may be. So I don't think things are going to go particularly smooth between November 5th and January 6th. There's too much probability of something really crazy happening. But let's go back to the vibe, as Tucker Carlson put it. So I want to share his recent thoughts on this. And I tend to agree. I'm trying to be cautious here. I don't want to say that we've got it to the point where it's too big to rig, but I think we're pretty much there. So let's hear what Tucker's got to say.
And so on election day, and I've sincerely believed Donald Trump's going to win. And if I thought he was going to lose, I'd be here anyway, by the way. I would. In fact, I would have been here earlier if I thought he was going to lose, just to make the point. I mean it. I don't like people who jump on the winning train, okay? I think Donald Trump's going to win. And not only do I think Donald Trump's going to win, I think that the vibe shift has been so profound. I mean, the numbers suggest he's going to win. He's ahead in all 7 battleground states. But much more important, and the early voting seems to be favoring him. But more important even than the conventional political markers is what you smell around you. And it's the return of freedom. It's the return of the country you grew up in, where you could say things like, I like that guy, and maybe you like the other person. That's fine. That was not allowed for 9 years. And it's allowed now. And I think, and it's because of what they did, by the way, they deserve this. But I think the vibe is so strong right now, I don't think we can get away with pretending something else happened. I don't think we can have another 2020 at this point. I just don't. I don't. Where they hid relevant facts from you, they prevented you from knowing about their candidate, and then claimed victory. Or 37 billion votes or whatever they claim he got. That's rigging the election, period. If the government prevents people from knowing critical information about a candidate, they have rigged the election. And they did that, period. Oh, you're not allowed to say that. I'm not allowed to say it because it's 100% true. And every person who hears it knows it's true, including the people who did it. I don't think they can do that again. I don't. And I don't think, no matter what they pull 2 weeks from now, 13 days from now, I don't think they can get away with standing up and being like on MSNBC, no, actually, Kamala Harris is a historically popular, it turns out. A woman who's never had a job, who can't even pronounce her own first name consistently. That's how false she is. Some woman who grew up in Montreal, Canada is lecturing me about America. Okay. I don't think they can do that because I don't think people are going to sit back and take it. I don't. It's enough. It's enough.
Jeff, thoughts on this vibe, as Tucker Carlson puts it?
Yeah, I think there definitely is a vibe. I mean, there are people who would not put a Trump bumper sticker on their car because they would expect it to get keyed or something. And I'll admit, I'm one of them. I like Trump, and I support him and everything else, but I'm not willing to pay $2,000 for a paint job, just to have a bumper sticker on my car. I'll put the sign in my yard, and if somebody tries to mess with that, I've got other ways to handle that issue. But yeah, I think people are feeling more comfortable. You're seeing it out of Hollywood, even where you've got actors who've been keeping their mouths shut for years because they didn't want to lose work, are now finally coming out and saying, I'm tired of it. Yeah, you know what? Guess what? I support Trump, or at least I'm not a fan of Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, or I'm a capitalist. I like making money. I don't want to give it all to people who didn't do anything to earn it. Or the country's turning into something, or the crime. Look at how many Hollywood people are moving out of California, and it's the taxes, but a lot of it's the crime in the schools. They don't want to raise their kids in that environment. And you can't tell me that those people are in their hearts diehard Democrats, because they're not so stupid as to think that the Republicans are the one that's making crime go up. And those are the people who will probably say they voted for Kamala, but actually vote for Trump. There's it's you're there. It's virtue signaling on the outside, and then you're voting your own self interest once you're in the booth. And people vote their self interest, and so I think the vibe is changing. You've got people like us that are kind of excited about the chance that censorship is going to be quashed, and that they're going to go after the people who are censoring it, like when Trump said he's going to investigate the Brits for interfering in the election. It doesn't work. We got to try something else.
You froze up there for a second, Jeff, but I think we got.
Yeah,
we're
but
good.
everyone's a Republican is a Democrat, or I should say, a Democrat is a Republican who hasn't been mugged yet.
Right. So before S2 goes, I'll just throw a couple things in. I've seen a lot of comments and heard a lot of comments from people saying, I absolutely despise Donald Trump. I hate him, but he's by far the best choice to turn things around for the country. So I'm voting for him. And then speaking with my buddy Jason Wilson, very high level political operative, many, many millions of dollars goes through his hands for this type of research. He's telling me everything is pegging Trump high 60s, low 70% favorability rating, when they don't skew the polls by oversampling Democrats. And Jason doesn't do that. They're very evenly split, like 40% Republicans, 40% Democrats, 20% independents is what they strive for. And those are the numbers. And I see it as well. There's no way that Kamala could pull off the votes to win this. S2, do you want to comment on Tucker's comments? The vibe?
Yeah, I think Tucker's absolutely 100% correct on that. With the advent of alternative media, alternative media was kind of hanging out on the side stage back in 2020, but it's become more and more prominent now as people are actually like Tucker, are starting to build their own networks, and people are starting to listen to what they're saying. They're starting to listen to the people that they're having on their shows coming out and telling the truth about folks. And the other interesting thing that I see too is, they've tried rebranding Kamala now at least 5 times. And no matter what they do, they can't turn that can of pork and beans into chicken noodle soup. The other interesting thing that I see in comparison is they've also sort of rebranded Trump as well. You're starting to see a side of him that was not promoted back in 2020, where he was just this shrewd, dishonest businessman. But now that he's getting out in front of the people more and more and more, they're starting to see the side of him that they've never seen before, where he is actually human. Yes, he's a businessman. Okay, hands down. And I've always said that's what we needed to run this country. He was somebody that had been successful in business, that knows what a balance sheet looks like. And I do believe that even if they're trying to cheat actively now, we're seeing it in small places here and there, and they're trying to do some places even larger, like Maricopa, for instance, where they're saying, "Oh, we're not going to see the total of the votes for 10 days or 29 days." But the more and more they try that, the more and more eyes are going to be on it. And that's really what I think is going on. Even with the vote, even if they try to cheat with the voting machines like they tried that crap down in Texas, where they offset the alignments, the alignment marks on the ballots. They
Mhm.
tried to offset those. Well, somebody caught it long before everybody else started pouring into the polls. So once again, with the alternative media, with seeing the real side of Trump and his humanity has made him much more popular. So we get those two things coupled in, and then we get the fact that things are different. I keep hearing this, that, oh, they're going to rig it and then Trump's going to lose. I just I just don't see how he's going to lose this at face value. That's why they're going to have to go to the lawfare thing. They're going to have to delay, because they're just delaying the inevitable. So
Yeah.
that's my thoughts on it.
Yep, I think you're on the money there. As to, I would say with your comments regarding rebranding Kamala, the old adage, you can't polish a turd comes to mind. It doesn't matter how you package that up. You can put as much lipstick on that pig as you want. It's still a pig at the end of the day.
Well,
So,
Yep.
my way I look at it is you can turn a steak into a sausage, but you can't turn a sausage back into a steak. And
fair enough.
she's a sausage. No pun intended.
Right.
Keep talking, Kamala. Keep talking.
All right.
Just
So
keep talking.
I've got a few tabs here that I want to go through before we discuss it, but this is essentially RFK commenting on Kamala's comments on how Donald Trump is going to unleash the military against our citizens, when in reality, the current administration very quietly on September 27th updated the DoD Directive 5240.01 to unleash the American military against American citizens on American soil. I mean, pretty much anything and everything that the bad guys say that the good guys are going to do, the bad guys are doing it themselves. So let's hear RFK's comments on this.
President Harris said today in her post, in her speech, she said that President Trump was going to turn the U.S. military against the American public and use the public to promote his agenda. How many of you think that is true? Well, what's interesting to me is that the Biden-Harris administration has done something 2 weeks ago that has never been done in American history, which is to send lethal force, to send a directive to the Pentagon, changing the law to make it legal for the U.S. military to use lethal force against American citizens on American soil. Technically, now it's legal for the U.S. military under this directive. It will become legal for the U.S. military to shoot and kill Americans who engage in political protests because they disagree with policies in the White House. I'm not making it up. Any of you can look it up. This is a Democratic initiative. This did not come during the Trump administration.
So let me move to the next page that I've got pulled up. So this is a really good article that basically lays it all out. DoD shreds all remaining constitutional protections from Posse Comitatus Act in anticipation of post-election Civil War 2.0. I'm not going to read through all of this. You guys can search it. You can find it. You can confirm it. You can go back a few days. You can see the episode that we did on this very topic. And not only is it disconcerting that they can use the military against us on American soil, but the vagueness of the language. It is very purposely vague in that, oh, well, this, Andy Griffith called up and said, hey, we need some help here in Mayberry. And that's all it requires. We need mutual aid. Jeff, your thoughts on this installed administration teeing this whole possibility up?
Yeah, this is it's kind of a self-looking ice cream cone at this point, because you could have people protesting the FBI's heavy-handed approach to stuff, and rightfully so. And then the FBI, as a law enforcement organization, could say, hey, military, we need your help. Can you come over here and start shooting some people? Because they're out in front of FBI headquarters complaining about us being heavy-handed. So can you come in and shoot them? And it's self-fulfilling prophecy at that point. I mean, but would they do that? I don't know. Would the military even respond? You might get officers, and I would like to think if I was a captain in charge of a group, and they said, "Yeah, go shoot those protesters," I'd be like, not what I signed up for. Not a lawful order. Sorry, not going to do that. And so I think that could blow up in their face, because to this day, most military, not counting the woke ones they've put in there lately, but most of the military, especially the professional and the middle grade officers, are by their nature conservative, and they're patriotic Americans. And they understand that the right to assemble, the right to protest, the right to free speech is in the Constitution that they swore to defend. So I don't see them necessarily doing that. But I could see the Democrats sure as hell try.
Yeah. S2?
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, there's another component to what Jeff said, is that not only are they conservative by nature and patriotic by nature, they also have a very deep-seated belief in God and the morality behind that. So I agree with Jeff on that front, that I don't see that happening either. And frankly, I still go back to my theory that you had some DEI hire in there that misinterpreted the commander's intent in that directive and just wrote in whatever they thought sounded good or sounded intimidating. Because let's look at it. This is exactly what a dictatorship's regime does, is they put out words, they put out the propaganda, no matter which avenue they choose, to scare the people into doing things. And when they're starting to feel like a cornered animal, which they are, I mean, even CNN is distancing themselves from her now. When they came down on her, Anderson Cooper says, "Well, you've been vice president for the last 3.5 years. Why haven't you done anything?" And she can't answer that question. So even they are starting to hammer her now, and they're starting to distance themselves. Pretty soon, they're going to walk themselves right off a ledge.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it. So I actually just got a text message from our good friend John Wheaton, and he's not listening to this. Of course, this is a pre-record, but he just sent me this meme.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty funny. But anyway, agree with everything you guys are saying on that as well. But you want to talk foreign election interference? So this guy plotted to try and, do damage to X because he hates Elon. And now he's been very covertly working to shut RFK Jr. down because they're nervous on as far as his impact on the election is concerned. I mean, we've got one bad actor after another bad actor trying to stick their fingers in our business. And seriously, if any of these people happen to get caught for this on American soil, they need to be sent away for a long, long time. And they say, October surprise is a thing, right? That the Democrats would be unleashing this October surprise. And their whole thing was fabricated bullshit lies. And we're going to get into some of those lies. But Dan Bongino basically describes it to a T right here, like DEFCON 1 levels of panic in the media and the deep state. They know that they're going to get smoked in this, and that there's no way to cheat enough to win it, because if they did, it would show well over 100% voter turnout. It's kind of funny, actually, to me, to be watching this. But let's talk about interference in the election, whether it's our domestic media or these foreign bad actors. I'm just going to start it by saying, you guys have heard me say this before, we need truth in broadcasting. If you knowingly broadcast complete and utter bullshit, you need to lose your broadcast license. Would it take some really careful consideration on who's the arbiter of that? Absolutely. But some of this stuff is so obvious that there's no way that a news organization can publish it and possibly claim that, we're just reporting the facts here. Jeff, thoughts on the British guy and mainstream
Yeah.
media trying to swing the election here?
Well, CCDH is theoretically some sort of a nebulous quasi-government thing, but it's really part of the Labor Party, who is the party in charge now. Current Starmer is the prime minister, and they tried to say we're not affiliated with CCDH. That's not us. That's not us. Well, that's total bullshit, because the chairman of the DCCH, I can't remember the guy's name now. I'm just reading this yesterday, I think, resigned as the head of the CCDH to become Starmer's chief of staff.
Right.
That's that's about as close as you can frickin' get. Then you have Labor Party announcing publicly that they have sent 100 people to go work in North Carolina for Kamala Harris. If that isn't election interference, I don't know what is. What I would love, and Trump has pledged to investigate and everything too, but there needs to be teeth. And what he needs to do is say, call in the ambassador, say, I want a public acknowledgement that you did this. I want a public apology for doing it. I want you to state publicly, the government, the British government, that this will never happen again. And if you don't, I'm sending the ambassador home. We're going to put the ice on any cooperation with the British government, whether it be intel sharing, military assistance, anything. And if the CCDH and the British government tries to crack down on X for them promoting what is constitutionally protected speech in the United States, if you try to punish them for that, guess what? BBC ain't going to be here anymore, and we're going to start sanctioning you guys as well. You're not getting, no Daily Mail, no Guardian, no nothing. You do that, if you go after an American media company for doing constitutionally protected activities, then we're going to go after you just as well and twice as hard. And by the way, we're a hell of a lot bigger than you, and you need us a hell of a lot more than we need you. And Britain will cave because they can't last without us.
Absolutely. Very well said. S2.
That's hair Starmer to you.
Hair Starmer.
Hair Starmer.
Yeah, more like he's liberal, so I think he's more like head of the Politburo.
Yeah,
there you go.
I just keep wondering where all of these people come off telling us what we're going to do in our country. What we do in our country, while certain aspects of it may impact what happens in their country, they have, these twits tried to do this 250 years ago.
Yeah.
Didn't work out real good back then either. And it's not going to work out real good now, because now we have something that we didn't have back then. We have economic sanctions.
Yeah.
And we could just as easily sanction Britain as well as we would do Russia or any other country out there. So yeah, hair Starmer, back off.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm not going to concentrate too much on the latest bullshit swipe at Donald Trump, but I will pull this up quickly. And again, I'm not going to give this a whole lot of coverage, but this broad here is a Democrat activist. This picture's from many years ago. Father Time did not treat her well. She looks like she fell out of the ugly tree and hit every branch on the way down. But mysteriously, 35 years later, she remembers, that Donald Trump groped her again. And this was part of their October surprise that fell flat on its face. I don't really want to discuss this because I think it's just complete bullshit. If you guys want to say anything, go ahead and say it now. Otherwise, we'll move on.
Isn't that Patty Hearst?
Looks like it.
Yeah.
Well, if this is the one that she was saying Epstein was somehow involved.
Correct.
Yeah, there was some guy who it's already been debunked, because the story she tells is, we walked from Epstein's brownstones, and he said, hey, let's go see Trump and swing by Trump's office. And he goes, Epstein didn't even, and it was like in, I don't know, was it 1993 or something like that? But he says, Epstein didn't own the brownstone till 3 years later. And it's
right.
like, so and it's like, so your story immediately falls apart. And he goes, took me 30 seconds to find that out. And it says the fact that the media is not checking anything just means they don't want to check anything. It is complete utter bullshit. And she can do it because she knows there's going to be no repercussions.
Exactly. Yeah. Fabricated bullshit.
Nobody wants your drugs anymore, Louis. Go away.
So listen to, like, I want to get off that topic because it doesn't deserve any more attention than what we gave it. So this is kind of funny. We're in the twilight zone. Anderson Cooper is calling out Kamala in front of millions of people. What's happening here? And so my opinion of what I'm going to play this, and then you guys can weigh in on it. But my opinion of what's happening here is they're trying to save face so that they don't get completely lambasted after the election as mouthpieces, which is all they really are. But they are trying to protect themselves a little bit, I guess. But her answer is crazy here, by the way.
Some voters, though, might ask, you've been in the White House for 4 years. You were vice president, not the president. But why wasn't any of that done for the last 4 years?
Well, there was a lot that was done, but there's more to do, Anderson. And I'm pointing out things that need to be done, that haven't been done, but need to be done.
Some voters.
I just keep hearing the unburdened by what has been, like, her delivery is always the same, but he's not the only mainstream media person, mouthpiece, propagandist who's speaking out against Kamala. I mean, what do you think, Jeff? Are they just trying to save a little bit of face here so they have some shred of credibility?
They're trying to save their credibility. I mean, they're looking, and to be honest, it's he makes a shit ton of money and he wants to keep on that gravy train, though he doesn't need it. He's a Vanderbilt.
Right.
If you look at what happened to Dan Rather when he came up with the whole bullshit letter on Bush, back in 2000, I think it was, which turned out to be complete fabrication. That's when people went into the font on the letter and said that font didn't exist when you said this thing was written and all that. And his career went down the toilet. I mean, he kind of came back later as a kind of a special on assignment guy, but he was the anchor for the CBS Evening News, and they sacked his ass. They canned him. I mean, he was still getting paid because of his contract, but they pulled his ass off the air. And he was a lot bigger then than any of these people are now. There is really nobody now of his stature, because he was kind of the last of the old school Walter Cronkite, kind of guys. And if he can go down, the others are going, okay, if he can get torpedoed, then I can certainly get torpedoed. So what they're backing off now is that they can say, don't look at me, man. I didn't drink the Kool-Aid. Look at these hard questions I asked her when the election was almost over already. They're just trying to maintain a little bit of credibility.
Yeah, that's the way I see it as well. S2, your thoughts?
Yeah, same thing. Like I said before, they're backing away from her too. They're trying to make themselves look like they're something that they've come to Jesus in some way. That's all I see them doing at this point.
Yeah, they don't like her enough to throw their career onto the bonfire for her.
All right, we'll move on to the next one. I'm not really surprised by this endorsement that the New York Post endorsed Donald Trump. They've been pretty favorable towards him for quite a while now, but it's significant to see somebody from the mainstream media essentially sticking their neck out and saying, Donald Trump is by far the best choice. So I don't know that there's a lot to discuss on that, but there is on this next one. So new Gallup poll shows 84% of Americans favor voter ID, but that makes you a racist. So people are not as willing to cop to that in public. We're the only industrialized nation in the world that doesn't require voter ID. And even most second and third world countries require voter ID. Why don't we have voter ID? Because the Democrats want to enable and some rhinos want to enable the illegal aliens being able to vote. So I won't go through all of the individual pieces here, but it's pretty telling. You look at 84% top line requirement that all voters provide photo identification at their voting place in order to vote. I'm not sure about all the states now, but a lot of the states have like a holographic gold star on them that show that you're an American citizen. And if somebody has a driver's license is not a citizen, they lack that. I know that's for sure here in Florida.
Is it real ID or something like that?
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
I've got
So there's this particular link, and again, this PDF has been uploaded to our Patreon for our insider members, so they've got links to all this stuff. But Elon Musk points out this is insanity. Like, how could you allow people who are non-citizens to vote in our elections? This one here, I'm going to play this one just because, if nothing else, if you haven't got the clued in yet that Kamala Harris is just a complete shill, an adult, and has the IQ of a hammer, which I believe is what Mel Gibson said coming up here shortly. But listen to this.
Is agreeing to voter ID one of those compromises that you'd support?
I don't think that we should underestimate what that could mean. Because in some people's mind, that means, well, you're going to have to Xerox or photocopy your ID to send it in to prove you are who you are. Well, there are a whole lot of people, especially people who live in rural communities, who don't, there's no Kinko's, there's no Office Max near them. People have to understand that when we're talking about voter ID laws, be clear about who you have in mind and what would be required of them to prove who they are.
I got to cut it off there. I can't listen to that shit anymore. I mean, we've probably beat this topic to death that voter ID is required. Do you guys want to weigh in on it at all? Or can we just say that we all want voter ID and that the Democrats just want to cheat?
Anyone who doesn't want voter ID has an ulterior motive, and it ain't to make sure poor people can vote. It's to steal votes. It's to cheat.
There you go. S2.
I got to have an ID to buy a firearm. I got to have an ID to buy liquor. I got to have an ID to buy cigarettes. I have to have an ID to get on an airplane. I have to have an ID to drive a car. I think there is that. But yeah, why would we not have to have an ID for something as critical as casting our vote? There's only one answer.
Correct.
Move on.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Like I said, I think we pretty much beat that one to death. All right. Next one up. Oh, Crooked Hillary is up next. Good deal. Always good for some cheap entertainment.
And, one other thing that you'll see next week, Caitlin, is Trump actually reenacting the Madison Square Garden rally in 1939. I write about this in my book. President Franklin Roosevelt was appalled that neo-Nazis, fascists in America were lining up to essentially pledge their support for the kind of government that they were seeing in Germany. So I don't think we can ignore it. And, one other thing that you'll see next week, Caitlin, is Trump.
So before we discuss Crooked Hillary, let me share one more video of this nutcase, who's, I'll just let her speak for herself, and then we'll discuss both of them.
His cozying up to dictators, his obsession with Hitler that has now come out, what he has said about our veterans, and what he wants to do with the military against his political adversaries. It's all huge news. This is the future that we're looking at in the next Trump term, if there is one. But this is what voters know right now, that he is killing us. I'm talking about us women. He's killing us. He is putting us at risk. He is making us afraid to have babies. He is putting our reproductive health at risk. And some women have died already because of this. So we can see right now what's coming. These headlines, and very good reporting, by the way, that shouldn't be questioned by idiots about what Trump has said about Hitler. That's incredibly important to know. But I do understand that people who are busy and that are people who are just tapping in may not be able to comprehend, because we've been free. We've been comfortable. We cannot comprehend that. And I understand that. I validate that it is hard to go from here to there. It is where we're going. I hope we don't find out the hard way. But what's happening with women right now is real, and it is playing out across America.
This woman is an idiot.
Well, that's an
So
insult.
just mash them both together, Hillary and Micah, and all the hysteria.
I got to comment on the Hillary thing about, that was the German American Bund, which was a pro-Nazi group from the 30s that she's referring to. And yes, they had some rally or whatever, I think at Madison Square Garden back in the 30s. What's so funny about it, it's like, who else has used Madison Square Garden over the years for political rallies, conventions, everything else? It's been used all the time. Apparently, this is the first time it ever became a Nazi event. But it reminds me, it's like, well, Billy Joel played Madison Square Garden a couple nights ago. I guess, was he the warm-up act for Hitler? I'm just curious. But it's like saying Donald Trump wears pants. You know who else wore pants? Hitler. So Trump must be Hitler. Trump doesn't drink alcohol. You know who else didn't drink alcohol? Adolf Hitler. Therefore, Trump must be Hitler. Yeah, you know, Trump has a penis. Hitler had a penis. Oh my God, they're the same person. It's hysteria, and it is hilarious to watch. If it wasn't so sad, because there are some people probably switched over from The View to watch Hillary, going, "Oh my God, she's absolutely right." You talk about the low IQ voters. These are just the no-brain voters. These are the sheep. These aren't even people anymore. Anyone who listens to her and pays attention and believes her is a sheep.
Yeah. So let's throw another crazy cat lady into the mix here. Goes by the name Keith Olbermann.
Ms.
Box wine grandpa.
I don't understand how stupid you'd have to be to listen to Hillary, Micah, and this clown and actually believe what they're saying. So the only conclusion that I can draw from all of this is that they're all getting paid huge sums of money by Big Pharma, because everybody who watches this stuff and gets scared to death goes running to their primary care physician to get more Xanax.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what else? Prozac. If you're going to follow the money, that's where the money leads on this. I mean, every last one of them are cuckoo. S2, you want to comment on the crazy cat lady that's on screen right now?
That's crazy cat grandpa.
No, you didn't get the memo. He changed his pronouns.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It was around the time where he said he was so mad that he had urine coming out of his eyes.
He's now Karen Oberman.
You guys have seen that, right? Where he was so mad that he had urine coming out of his eyes. His words, not mine. No,
that's nasty.
Well, tell you what, go ahead and talk through this for a minute while I find that video. And,
I really am kind of speechless on this one. It's the whole thing about, Hillary saying, "Oh yeah, Madison Square Garden just became the Reichstag."
Yeah.
It's maybe they'll set fire to it. These people, and going on to whoever that other chick, I think it was Mika or whatever her name is. She says that Trump's doing this, Trump's doing that, Trump's doing this, Trump's doing that. And that's exactly what Biden and Harris and all of their other little tranny compatriots are doing. They're actually doing it.
It's projection. I love how he's stopping people from having babies by not letting them kill their babies. And it's like, okay, you want
and then turning around and flipping over to the Trump rally and says, "And we're gonna give you tax credits for having babies because we like those beautiful little babies."
Yeah,
it's like
Republicans are pro baby because you want Americans, you need more Americans, you need keep your population stable.
And I'm still trying to figure out whoever made this whole abortion thing the top Democrat issue in the world. I'm trying to figure this out. And I'll say this too. If you're a Catholic and you're a Democrat, you're
Ow.
you're on the wrong side of the fence. And if you vote for this witch, you're certainly on the wrong side of the fence.
Yeah, you could say same thing for Jewish Americans as well. Why are you voting for the people who want to or support the people trying to kill you? But this whole idea that they want to go after Elon, and but you don't see it on the other side. Okay, Bill Gates just gave $50 million to the Kamala Harris campaign. You have not heard any Republican anywhere, pundit, influencer saying we should shut down Microsoft because Bill Gates gave money to Kamala Harris.
Well, I think Elon just gave another 40 million to Trump's PAC.
Yeah,
40 or
and good
50.
on him. It's his money.
Yeah. Yeah, it was significant for sure. So I'm trying to find Keith Olbermann's. Let's see if this one's it. I don't know if this one's it or not, but if it's not, I'll keep looking.
Says, quote, the Supreme Court has betrayed democracy. Its members, including Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor, have proved themselves.
No, that one's not it. I gotta find this now, though. This is killing me. That
Olbermann, urine, eyes.
Yeah, I've been searching that, and
Oh,
maybe that last one was it then. I'll tell you what. I'll
maybe
look for it.
Oberman needs to be one of the candidates. Maybe Oberman needs to be the next candidate for a gender transition.
Maybe. So I'll tell you what.
I think you
I'll come back. I'll come back to that. I'll find it when we're discussing something else. But the next article I had up was Mel Gibson says Kamala has the IQ of a fence post, and that quote came from this video. And got the wrong one. Sorry, got too many tabs open. Comes from this video. Pardon me. Apologies. And it's a rough video to watch because whoever's chasing them, trying to talk to them, stutters like you wouldn't believe, like they just don't know what they're saying. But long story short is he's never been afraid to speak his mind. He's been shunned by major portion of Hollywood, and it's a funny post, funny comment, which is why I threw it up there. So let's move on to another one here that relates to the borders. I don't know if you guys saw this at all, but this is a Democrat in Ohio who says that the only people who are not in favor of a wide open border are just the racist people like us.
I'm all for just open the fucking border. I don't give a shit who the fuck comes in here. We don't need border patrol, but the issue with even talking about immigration here in Ohio is that it's a losing. It's a losing issue for Democrats here for no fucking reason other than people's pure racism. So that's why it's probably really hard to find anything about where she stands on it. In terms of the way that she talks to the public, if she has to address immigration, she starts losing.
So I don't think he's the only one that works in the Democrat machine to get people to vote who honestly believes that we should just have a completely wide open southern border. They don't care any regard to culpability, like people murdered like Lake and Riley. Don't care about crime waves. Don't care about the fact that it costs us billions upon billions of dollars. Last one I saw says that we're spending somewhere around $450 billion a year on illegals, which makes it the number 2 line item in the federal budget, only behind our military budget of almost $900 billion. So here's a question from a slightly different angle for both of you. How do we eradicate this from our society? If these people truly believe we're better off with open borders and they end up getting the reins of power, we see another situation like we've had in the past 3.5, 4 years. I don't think we could sustain another 3.5, 4 years and manage to keep the country. So at a very high level, how do we stomp this stuff out, being libertarians as well?
Well, I think you need to find every one of those people like him and then say, oh, by the way, you're fired because we're giving your job to Apu over here, who just came across the border from northern Pakistan. And he needs work. So we're going to give him your job. And then watch him go, whoa, wait a minute. Now it's starting to affect me. Before it never really affected me that I was aware of. I've got neighbors
that a step
in my
further.
own neighborhood who are conservatives that you bring something up and go, well, it doesn't affect me. I'm like, yeah, but you've got kids and grandkids. It's sure as hell going to affect them. And it doesn't affect you today. It sure as hell will tomorrow. And when your taxes go up to cover all this shit.
Yeah, fair enough. S2.
Take that a step further. We're knock, knock, knock. Apu here needs a place to live. Would you please pack your stuff and get out?
Yeah.
Apu needs a car. Would you please leave your car keys on the inside table in there when you leave? You can yeah, please go ahead. Keep making your mortgage payments and keep paying for your car. That way Apu has something to get to your job with. And meanwhile, you can go down to the park down the street down here, and we're not even going to give you a tent. So, yeah,
bear with
people are so complacent with all of this because it has not impacted them yet, because they're targeting all of these smaller rural communities where this is going on, where they're sending these folks now. They've already flooded the major Democrat cities. Now they're starting to move out into the small rural towns like Springfield and Logansport, Indiana, and places like that. So people aren't really seeing it. It's impacting the people in those small towns, but it's not impacting people in the larger Republican areas yet. So what happens with the locust horde? They come in, they eat the crop, they move on to the next crop. That's exactly the way it works.
Yeah, well said. So quickly circling back on this, I can't find the video, but I can find the Twitter thread. So this is Olbermann went on a rant against SCOTUS. So the Supreme Court has betrayed democracy. Its members, including Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor, have proved themselves inept at reading comprehensive, and collectively the court has shown itself to be corrupt and illegitimate. It must be dissolved. So then Gunther Eagleman says, cry more, 9-0. And Keith Olbermann's response is, those aren't tears, fascist. They're urine. I'm sure you enjoy being bathed in it. The guy is mentally unstable. I mean,
he's insane.
The thing I like about that post
look like William Soule.
The thing I like about that post the most is that all three of those were Democrat judges.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Well, it was a 9-0 decision, but I mean, again, we've commented on this recently. Like most Americans who are, call it conservative, traditional values, libertarians, whatever you want, has a sense of humor. And somebody asked me to sum up our audience a while ago, and I said, well, the survival community wants to learn as long as it's not too heavy of a left with a sprinkling of entertainment. And if you watch anything that's in the same vein as SDN, you'll see that. You see Donald Trump joking, but on the other side, the sky is constantly falling. They're beyond miserable. Clearly, they're not taking enough Xanax, or else it just doesn't work for them. I don't know what to think of it. But anyway, with that being said, I want to switch ever so slightly to another topic here. So Blinken and Lloyd were pissed off a couple weeks ago when we didn't tell them, or the Israelis, pardon me, didn't tell us what their plans were for bombing in Lebanon. And Netanyahu said, well, you can't be trusted. You guys let everything out of the bag, and it would have, nuked the mission. And that now we find that there's been information that the Israelis gave us being leaked on our part back to the Iranians. And it's this one particular person, Tabadata Bai, not sure how you pronounce that multi-syllable word, but anyway, she was pointed out by Steve Bannon and Kash Patel. She was named by them as being part of an Iranian spy network in the currently installed administration here. And lo and behold, she's the one who's been leaking that information. I mean, there she is right there.
Now, what's interesting about her father is like the dean of the law school at the University of Tehran.
Right.
Her family is all in Tehran. Now, if you are Iranian intelligence, and even if she didn't want to do it, and you say, hey, bad things could happen to your parents if you don't give us everything you come across. She's ripe for being blackmailed and extorted, but more than anything, you got to question her loyalty. All her family is back there, and they're at high levels government officials. And
is she even a U.S. citizen?
Top secret clearance? What the hell is going on?
Is she even a U.S. citizen?
Good question.
I assume so, because she wouldn't be able to get a top secret clearance if she wasn't. And she came over to the Pentagon, I think, 2 years ago from State Department. Of course, the State Department's a bunch of morons anyway. Communist.
Voter IDs and background checks for all around.
Yep.
Yeah.
But if she has a top secret clearance, she should have gone through a thorough background check.
Suffice it to say that we're back to our government is being run or is under the direct control of our enemies. There's no other way to describe the behavior that consistently comes out of our government. And I mean, when Steve Bannon and Kash Patel pointed her out, they didn't mince their words. They flat out said she is an Iranian spy. She is a known Iranian spy, and yet you're letting her sit in on all these cabinet meetings and giving her access to all kinds of top secret stuff. How do you allow a foreign spy, known foreign spy, into your administration and not bat an eye over it if you're not being controlled by enemy interests? There's no other way to square it. I know I sound like a broken record, but golly, I mean,
you got Swalwell banging a Chinese spy and then calling Trump a traitor.
Exactly.
And then still can't get him off the intelligence committees.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point, Stu. So I only have a couple more articles for our news roundup today. This one is good to see. This is in North Carolina, and FEMA basically being told to pound sand. So we'll listen to this.
It's a little story that just happened. We're just sitting here at the hub, and we got these boys. They're going to widen out the road, make it a little safer, and they're going to start working down there. We had a little blue SUV. See how this loader's coming in and out? I'm an equipment operator myself. We had a fucking car come down here about 30 miles an hour, fly right down in there. The loader operator looking at me as if like, holy shit, I almost crashed into that car. And I was like, yeah. So one of our boys went down there to talk to the car because you can't go much farther. He turned around. Guess who it was? It was FEMA. Well, we told them to kick rocks and get the fuck out of the valley, especially driving around here like that. So we put these things up. He tried to get around them, but we stopped him and let him know that shit ain't gonna fly. You're not welcomed and you're not wanted. Get the fuck out of this valley.
So, yeah,
I got something interesting to talk about with that.
And I was going to go to you first on this one, S2, just because you've been to the mess and you live in North Carolina. Let her rip.
So it turns out that this whole thing about militias running around hunting FEMA down turned out to be a complete lie. There were three entities involved here. There was the National Guard that was involved, there was FEMA that was involved, and the National Forestry Service. And it turns out FEMA had written an email to or I can't remember if it was National Guard. One of those two had written an email to one or the other saying that they had to get out of there because they had heard that there were FEMA, militia groups out hunting FEMA. So they go back to the National Guard, and the National Guard says, yeah, no, we haven't heard any or seen anything like that. And so it's going back and forth now between the Forestry Service and FEMA basically got caught in their own lie. And they basically have shot themselves completely in the foot there. Nobody wants them there. They're just in the way. So they're once again, my analysis of that entire situation is they were trying to make themselves look like victims because they weren't being allowed to do their jobs because they weren't doing their jobs. So it turns out I was 100% correct on that.
Is that you, Kamala? Kamala, is that you on the other? Because that sounds like something she would say. You know?
It had to have been concocted by her. The whole cyclical word salad thing of, well, we have
No,
to figure out what that actually means.
yeah.
As
You're
I've said countless times, government is the least effective way to deliver a good or service, and is the
Yeah.
least efficient way.
no question. No
And
question.
and by the way, and by the way, I'll even make another comment about this too. That article that was written in Newsweek about that woman was sitting in the UK. She doesn't know a damn thing about what's going on here. And I told her, and I'll tell her again right now, if she ever wants to listen to this, that you should quit your job and go get yourself a job at a carnival as a weight and age guesser, because that's basically what you are.
Oh,
The
that's
militias,
good.
the militias down there don't give two shits about FEMA. They got other things to do.
So I only have one more article that I'm going to bring up. There's, I think, 3 or 4 that are in the brief that I didn't cover because we're sending this out to YouTube. And I've got a couple more verbal points I'm going to raise without pulling up anything because this is going to YouTube. But you can always get our uncensored content and opinions on Rumble and X and Cloud Hub, as well as our Patreon. So here's the next one. Another unhinged liberal, right? So the owner of the McDonald's that Trump went and did the French fries at has had to hire private security because he's been targeted by people, leftists basically, or pissed off about it. Kamala Harris never worked for McDonald's. She lied through her teeth as per usual. I mean, she didn't even grow up in California. She grew up in Montreal. But there's probably examples, but I'm not aware of them. So I'm going to ask you to. Can you give me an example on somebody pulling a stunt like this against Kamala, Joe Biden, Hillary, Obama in any recent times?
No.
Crickets. Yeah, that's pretty much what I thought. So there's not much more to beat to death on that other than for the umpteenth time.
The only one example I might be able to come up with is the guy down in Arizona that took a shot at the Democratic convention thing.
Yeah,
That's the only thing I can think of.
He's been a long-time lunatic for years.
Well, that's perfect because, I mean, my comment on all these leftists is that they're cuckoo, right? Like they're nuts. And the example you just gave of a, supposed conservative is that he was nuts. So I want to mention two other things before we get to the action items on what our audience can do in light of all the topics we discussed today. If you look for Washington Post shines a light on what modern life is like for people with electromagnetic sensitivity, you will find a very interesting article that I can't believe the Washington Post published on a topic that got us suspended and got us a strike on YouTube previously. And it has something to do with the number that comes after 4 and before 6. And the name Grover starts with this letter. But if you have a look for that, it's a really interesting article. We will discuss it in more depth next week on the free speech platforms. And actually, the next one is a comment that I found online. But ironically, just before I found this comment, Mike Sterling made this comment to me as well. And I want to turn this into a call to action for our audience. I've just seen a ton of prepper fatigue. And let's face it, lots of us are black pilling recently because the news cycle is nothing but negative, cynical crap, right? So our call to action to you out there in the audience, if you come across any positive stories that we could cover on Survival Dispatch News in upcoming episodes, either share it with me or us, I should say, on Patreon, or send it to support@survivaldispatch.com. I don't disagree with Mike Sterling, whoever the person was who originally made this quote. Some positive stories would be nice for a change instead of negative. So with that being said, we put together a list of about a dozen bullets that all y'all in the audience can do in light of everything we've discussed and have some sort of positive effect on your own life or the people around you or just in general. So I'm going to repeat it. Listen, we're almost out of time on this. I think maybe we got 10 days left. Then you don't have to hear me say this ever again. Take one person to the polls with you on November the 5th who doesn't normally vote. Let's drive this thing home and make sure the election is too big to rig. If 1.5% of us who voted for Donald Trump in 2016 and 2020 take one extra person to the polls who doesn't normally vote, it means that the Democrats would have to show over 100% voter turnout in multiple precincts to pull off a cheat. And again, we got to make it too big to rig. The next one, stack up your preps, especially food, water, meds, and ammunition. Next one, make sure all of your self-defense tools are in good working order. Clean, batteries in your optics zeroed properly, all that good stuff. Share survival dispatch news and other truth tellers far and wide to help get the word out, because the mainstream media has been failing the American public for decades now. And if it wasn't for the advent of platforms like X in particular and Cloud Hub and Rumble, people would basically be spoon-fed crap from the propaganda attainment industry and would have no idea of some of these shady things that have been going on. You can also become a Survival Dispatch insider and get access to our Signal group and get the latest intel there. S2's been kicking ass. People's heads are spinning in there on what he's been dropping on them for intel. There's a huge amount of value to being a Survival Dispatch insider and just getting access to the Signal group. And that's above and beyond all the other benefits that I covered earlier. If you do not have a family SHTF plan, put one together, practice it, make sure everybody in your family is familiar with what the provisions are in that family SHTF plan. Related to that, make sure you equip your vehicle with a get home bag and a SHTF get home plan in case your vehicle stops functioning. So we're going to have some content coming up soon on some new backpacks from Blue Eddy. And I know you're thinking Blue Eddy, like why would Blue Eddy make backpacks? And this is the large one. And there's another one that's a little bit smaller right here. And the reason that Blue Eddy developed these is because they come with these power stations that go in the backpack and allow you to go hiking, take your change of clothes, a tent, food, whatever, and have power for all your needs. Pretty innovative. I don't know if anybody else has done it. If they have, I'm not aware of it, but I really like to see innovation like that. So, that would be a great example of a bag to use for get home purposes. And we are not a Blue Eddy affiliate. There's no link where we get an affiliate commission or anything like that. When they asked if we would like to look at these, I jumped at the opportunity because I'm pretty keen on anything that's unique, and that's unique. I've not seen something like that. Could you build your own? Absolutely. But because there's electronics in those bags, by the way, they've got the craziest waterproof zippers I've ever seen. And we'll be showing you the results of the test on that too, by the way. So moving on from there, if you do not already have kind of a neighborhood group of like-minded individuals, I would encourage you to do so ASAP. I would also encourage you to fortify your home. So, and we've covered these topics ad nauseum, but things like, you put bushes and shrubbery under your windows that has thorns in it to stop people from being able to walk up to a window, break it, and break in. Motion detection lights, Ring camera systems, the list goes on and on and on. There's a lot of things that don't cost a lot of money to fortify your home. Get rid of the crappy 3/4 or 1 inch screws holding your door hinges on and put 3.5 inch screws, 3.25 inch screws, go back into the jack studs. So it's not so easy to get through the door. Listen, if somebody wants to break into your house, they will get in no matter what you do as far as fortifications are concerned. It's not that, okay, do these things and you're perfectly safe in your home. But what it does do is buy you time. Gives you time to react, time to call 911, time to get your gun, time to get your family to safety. So you want to put these impediments in place when you fortify your home. Test your grid down gear. I can't remember who it was. Had a conversation recently with somebody related to the hurricanes that we've been having here in Florida. And they thought they had all their ducks in a row. They had, generator and battery backup and stuff. And they went to run the generator and could not get it started, no matter what they did. So basically it had fuel sitting in the float bowl of the car. Without getting too technical, it'll eventually turn to jelly. It'll turn to shellac. The smell is pretty heinous. And if that happens, it's not hard, but you have to be mechanically inclined to take a carburetor apart and all the little moving parts and clean it and put it back together again. Not everybody can do that. Next thing, make sure you protect your home and car with EMP shield devices. If you go to survivaldispatch.com, click the shopping link, go down to EMP protection. There's a $50 coupon in there off of EMP shield devices, all of their devices. And the last one that we put on the list, and I'll give you guys a chance to chime in as well in case you thought of anything since we put the brief together, is if you can afford to get something like a Garmin InReach Mini, and you can see how tiny this thing is, they're $399. The subscription fee, they have different levels, but you can suspend it. So if you're not going anywhere off grid, and let's say there was no zaniness going on in the world, you can turn it off. We pay $12 a month from this. Tethers to your phone. You can send and receive text messages through the satellite network. So if I had one of these and you had one of them and the cell network goes down, we can still text back and forth vis-a-vis the satellite system. There's an SOS button on the side. I believe there's somewhere around 10,000 people have been saved. When you press that, it sets an alarm off at a Garmin monitoring station for the entire world, and they will dispatch help to get to you. And like I said, you can download highly detailed topographic maps. We got in the middle of a river system here in Central Florida, and we were trying to pinpoint exactly where we were. And the only way we could pull it up was with this device because there was no cell phone service. And it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't like we were way off the grid, but we were astonished to find that we were way further west on this river system than what we actually thought that we were. So, Jeff, I'll go to you first. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to our list on actionable items?
No, I think you pretty much got it covered. I mean, just, if shit hits the fan, just think, okay, can I live for 2 weeks without any? Yeah,
good point.
Just, medicines. If you have any medicines, make sure you have plenty of medicines. If you have prescription drugs that you take, make sure you're not on your last pill of your heart medicine or something like that. Make sure you got plenty around. Get those things re-up.
How you, buddy? What are you doing?
Jace Medical. If you don't have a resource to get extra medicines, you can call Jace Medical and then go through their telemedicine program, and they can probably help you out.
So before you do that, have a look, depending on what platform you're on, but at the very least, go to our main Survival Dispatch channel on YouTube, the big one with 400,000 subs. Do a search on Jace. You'll find a coupon in there that's pretty significant coupon as well. And you'll get a discount on anything that you order through Jace with that. Contingency Medical are good. Duration Health is good. The Wellness Company is good. Those would be the top four. There are some other ones that shall remain unnamed because we're not in the business of hurting other people's businesses, but not so good. And we've got experience with quite a few of these companies that do the emergency med kits with prescription meds, so on and so forth. All right, so let's move on to our wrap up.
Oh, wait a minute. I had one more thing I wanted to add here. I was just extending out what Jeff said. I know everybody's excited to vote and everybody wants Trump to be president and all of this, but I'm going to caution everybody. This early voting thing can turn into something very dangerous. And if you think about it, why would you tell the enemy how much margin they need to cheat ahead of time? My recommendation is vote on the day of and vote as late as you possibly can. That would be my recommendation, and it's also the recommendation of Jeff O'Donnell, who we had on last week, and a bunch of other people out there. I understand that everybody's getting all excited and they want to go out and vote, but hear my point on that, please.
Well, we mentioned this in previous episodes, and I agree completely. Like, if you vote early, not only is there the information leak, basically, as you've described it, but if it also enhances the opportunity for somebody to mess with your vote. Whereas at the last minute, there should be poll watchers and less opportunity for people to, pull any shenanigans with votes that came in early. It's very easy to lose early votes that came in, those sort of things, right? Yep. So with that being said, just a quick reminder, if you are a Survival Dispatch insider on Patreon and you want to be part of the Signal group, the process is you have to download and install Signal, and you have to actually configure it. Then you can send your phone number that's attached to Signal to support@survivaldispatch.com, and then we can invite you. But if you haven't installed the app, or you send me a phone number for a landline, which has happened a few times, we can't add you to the group. So you got to go through things in that order. Other than that, I think we're at the end. If y'all could mash the like button, we'd appreciate that, of course. And here's our conflicted question of the day. Put the following resources in order of importance to you in a post-apocalyptic setting: food, water, shelter, weapons. And if you could only pick 3 to bug out with, what would they be and why? Jeff, I'll let you go first.
Number 1, water. Can't live very long without water. Number 2, weapon. Number 3, food. I'm fat. I can live quite a while on my reserves. And then number 4 is shelter, because shelter somewhat, unless it's a tent, implies that you're in a permanent place and you may not want to be in that place for very long. As far as which 3, I'd take the top 3, because I can always find or make shelter somewhere. If I'm in the desert, if I'm in the woods, I can make a shelter. I can find a shelter. If you can't find a gun, you may not be able to find food. If you have a gun, you get food, but water is the main one. No water, you're dead.
My answer is exactly the same as yours. I didn't think this was a very hard question, to be quite frank. You're not going to get past 3 days without water, but not only are you not going to get past 3 days without water, by day 2, you're not going to be functioning properly. You're not going to be thinking clearly, and bad things can and will happen at that point in time. So water, by far and away, most important. I would go for the weapon second, not just for self-defense, but I can get some small game and find food that way, which is why I put food after that. And I'm with you on shelter. Even if you're in the middle of nowhere and you have half a brain, you can find some sort of shelter. And if you're in an urban setting and the shit hits the fan, clearly there's multiple places to find shelter. And I think we touched on this the other day ago. I personally would be looking for food and shelter in government buildings, the last places people will go to, because they're all going to go to the grocery store and Walmart and Target and stuff like that. S2, I'm guessing that your answer is probably about the same as Jeff's and mine, but then again, maybe not. So what you got?
Yep, except I'm going to the IBM data center, because they have a cafeteria in there, and that place is highly fortified.
There you go. And cafeterias. Who would have thunk it, right?
All right. Vending machines, food that's preserved.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it for this episode. We'll be back the next few nights, 4 nights in a row. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time with live episodes. Other than that, please like, share, and subscribe. And God bless America.
God bless.
Hoorah.
It feels like 2008 all over again. The best way to protect your savings is with gold and silver. As the national debt soars past $34 trillion and the banking system wobbles, your financial well-being could be at risk. Precious metals like gold and silver hedge against inflation and dollar devaluation. They're perfect for diversifying your portfolio. With Goldco, it's easy. Get first-class service, step-by-step guidance, and a free wealth protection kit. In just 3 simple steps, you can roll over your 401k or IRA into precious metals, tax and penalty free. Todd Callender and I chose Goldco because they stand out with over 6,000 5-star ratings, an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, and a highest buyback price guarantee. Don't wait. Secure your financial future. Visit survival.gold or click the link below to get your free 2024 Wealth Protection Kit now. Government agencies have been weaponized against us. The Secret Service reacts too late. The FBI manufactures cases. The ATF targets our firearms, and the FDA screws us to drive big pharma profits. We must support Trump, who literally took a bullet for us, and back independent media like Survival Dispatch News. Now they're aiming to make Black Forest NMN a regulated anti-aging product to drive more profits for big pharma. NMN is the only over-the-counter supplement I've taken that's noticeably increased my energy levels, allowing me to work extreme hours. I've taken almost every OTC supplement over the past 42 years that I've been training, many of them as a world champion powerlifter. Get your NMN before it's too late. Buy 2, get 1 free. Click the link below. Stay alert, stay strong, and stay safe.